What happened to you? Covered in blood.
My high school freshman daughter, who was supposed to have gone to visit my in-laws' house, came back home with blood flowing from her forehead, so I screamed. After quickly treating her, I immediately contacted my husband. When he answered the phone, I shouted at him without thinking.
Where are you?
Didn't I tell you I'm on a business trip?
I was stunned by his unexpected response. After all, I had seen off my husband and daughter who were supposed to visit my in-laws' home 5 days ago. In front of me was my daughter with a serious injury. Seeing me confused, my daughter revealed a shocking fact. My name is Mia Smith. I am a 40-year-old part-time housewife. My husband Michael is a salesperson who visits various schools to sell high school teaching materials. He says that trust is important, and he always behaves properly, which is cool. My daughter Sophia became a high school freshman this fall. She used to be so clingy that she couldn't leave my side, but now she's so reliable that she makes dinner and waits for me when I come home from work. I was living peacefully with my husband and daughter, but 5 years ago, my mother became bedridden due to an internal illness. Since then, I've been busy with caregiving and part-time work. I couldn't even visit my in-laws' house because of my mother's illness, and I couldn't make it happen even though I thought I should go there around Christmas. However, at that time,
You don't have to push yourself. It's good that you have an understanding husband.
he went to my in-laws' house alone while joking and laughing. I felt very sorry, but I was grateful because I was busy taking care of my mother. However, 3 years ago, my mother-in-law died suddenly in an accident. My father-in-law was very depressed because they were very close, and Michael's visits to my in-laws' house increased more and more.
I'll take my father on a trip to cheer him up. I want to treat him to delicious sushi.
Furthermore, the expenses increased to $200 or $400 every time he visited my father-in-law's house. However, as someone who was not going back to my in-laws' house because I was only taking care of my mother, I couldn't say anything about the money. One day, my husband talked to me about the cost of visiting my father-in-law, as usual.
I need $700 for the next visit.
What?
I wondered if such a large amount of money was needed for just one visit, but my husband didn't tell me the details of how the money would be used. It must be necessary money. I convinced myself that it was also something to make my father-in-law happy. However, I didn't have any spare money at hand due to the sudden expense, so I had to temporarily withdraw money from the account where I had saved my daughter's tuition fees. From now on, I have to refrain from going to the hair salon for a while and not touch Sophia's money. From there, I worked hard to save money and gradually returned it to my daughter's account. Sophia's entrance exam went well, and while we were taking a break,
I want to see Sophia after a long time.
Great! I'll take Sophia and my dad out for crab. It's a reward for always working hard.
Really? Yay!
thank you always. She never complained even though she was always being patient, and she helped me take care of my mother. I was filled with gratitude. On the morning of the day they were to leave, Sophia waved goodbye cheerfully and said she would buy souvenirs. Have fun. Everyone in the family was smiling. At that time, we had no idea that something like that would happen. It's been 5 days since Michael and my daughter went to my father-in-law's house. I was preparing lunch in the kitchen when I heard the sound of the front door opening with a bang. Who is it without ringing the doorbell? I was surprised and answered it loudly as I headed for the entrance. To my surprise, Sophia was standing there with blood flowing from her forehead.
What happened?
I screamed, looking around to ask my husband what was going on, but he wasn't there. I brought my trembling daughter into the house and immediately called Michael.
Where are you?
I'm at work. Didn't I tell you I'm on a business trip since the day after I took Sophia to my father's house?
I was in great confusion.
I didn't know anything about that. And most importantly, Sophia came back home with a serious injury.
She probably just fell. Teenage girls tend to exaggerate, so don't believe everything she says. Bye.
He hung up the phone. I couldn't believe such a crazy story, so I couldn't just say yes, I see. While treating my daughter's wounds, I asked her, what happened? Did Dad go to work? Sophia, with a pale face and trembling lips, muttered,
Daddy pushed me.
I was surprised, but I listened to her story while gently rubbing her back. Then I found out an unbelievable fact. My husband had been keeping a secret from us, and he had hurt Sophia because she found out about it. That wasn't all. He threatened Sophia, who was bleeding, saying,
Tell someone about this. Next time, you won't get away with just an injury.
Just then, my father-in-law returned from his outing, and Sophia ran away from my in-laws' house while my husband was distracted. Fortunately, Sophia had some money, so she was able to take the train alone, but she must have been so anxious while hiding her injury and returning home. I will never forgive anyone who hurts my lovely Sophia. I was angry not only about my husband hitting our daughter but also about the secret he had been keeping. I vowed to take revenge. After hearing all of Michael's misdeeds, I picked up my smartphone to call my father-in-law, but was surprised to see a mountain of missed calls from him. Oh, I'm sorry. I was cooking and didn't notice the phone ringing.
It's okay. More importantly, Sophia had an urgent matter and went back home. I'm worried if she arrived there safely, so I called many times.
I was speechless after hearing my father-in-law's story. My husband had been covering up the fact that our daughter, who he had injured, had run away to our house with such a lie. So I told my father-in-law everything I heard from my daughter. I will take her to the hospital, so it's okay. But I can't forgive Michael. I want to punish him, so can you keep him at your house? My father-in-law agreed to help me and said he would convince Michael to stay at his house for a while. Meanwhile, I prepared to confront my husband by running around and getting everything ready. 5 days later, after the investigation of Michael's secret was completed, I headed to my father-in-law's house. When I tried to ring the doorbell, I saw my daughter running towards me, gasping for breath.
Mom, wait a minute.
I told you to wait at home.
That's impossible. I need to settle this injury.
I didn't want to show my parents fighting in front of Sophia, so I had planned to go to my father-in-law's house alone. However, Sophia was not going to be quiet.
I think I have the right to speak up too.
Sophia refused to back down. I was reluctant, but I accepted my daughter's anger and decided to fight with her. After being greeted by my father-in-law, who already knew about my plan. I entered the living room and saw my husband, who seemed to have just woken up, lying on the sofa in his pajamas and watching TV, despite it being noon. "Oh, wasn't it a business trip?" I suddenly asked, and Michael jumped up in surprise.
No. I was supposed to go, but it got canceled."
He began to make excuses. "Well, that doesn't matter. I want to know about Sophia's injury."
"Oh, yeah, it's a stinky story. She fell down the stairs and hit her forehead."
I wanted to shout at him for being so slippery, but my father-in-law spoke first.
Enough already. We know that Sophia's injury is your fault.
Sophia also raised her voice in agreement, and I glared at Michael. The guilty husband was flustered, but then he suddenly had an idea and looked proud as he spoke.
"You haven't visited my father's house for a long time, but you act like you're so great. I cherish my father more than you guys did not."
He laughed and smirked, thinking I wouldn't say anything. It was true that I hadn't said anything because I thought he was right. However, I already knew from Sophia's story that my husband's words were full of lies.
Really? Can you say that it is cherishing your father when you go back to your father's house, but let your daughter do all the housework instead of spending time with your father?
Yes. You've been lazing around at home since we came here.
Shut up. It's just this time. I'm always working hard.
I saw Michael acting so arrogantly and took out my father-in-law's account book, which I had taken in advance. It contained not only the inflow and outflow of money but also detailed records of Michael's behavior at my father-in-law's house. Let me tell you what's written here. On June 10th, I gave Michael $150 for transportation. He lounged around all day and went out at night as usual, returning in the morning. Food expenses were high because Michael was there. I read the contents in a monotone voice. According to the book, Michael lied that I didn't even pay for transportation every time he visited my father-in-law's house and received money from his father every time. Taking advantage of the fact that I didn't visit my in-laws' house, Michael had made me out to be a stingy wife and had tried to get sympathy from his father.
Aren't you ashamed of living off your parent at your age? And you received so much help from him.
You didn't even get an allowance, and you came to my house often. I felt sorry for you and did many things for you, but it was all nonsense.
We blamed him, and Michael choked on his words and fell silent. I wonder what you used the money you swindled from your father for.
Well, that's...
You don't have to say anything. You're probably just thinking of another terrible lie.
After Michael mumbled something, I ignored him and presented a certain photo in front of him.
You wanted the money so badly because you were living it up in a place like this, weren't you?
How do you know about this place?
The photo showed my husband entering a shady massage parlor. He probably didn't expect that it was so well known. Michael turned pale. In fact, this was the secret that Sophia learned during her visit. She thought that Michael was taking good care of his father, but he kept going out at night and returning in the morning. So she secretly investigated him. She installed an app on his phone that would tell her his location without Michael knowing. When Michael went out, she checked his location on her computer and found that he was always at the same place. When my daughter searched on the internet, it was a service for men at night. When she was about to call to inform me of what happened, Michael came home. He saw Sophia searching for the location and details of the place on the computer and got angry, then pushed her. Sophia hit her head on the corner of the dresser and bled. You know the rest. After hearing Sophia's story, I left my mother in the care of a professional caregiver for a few days and staked out the place to gather evidence of Michael's spending. I took photos of him entering and leaving the place. When I saw my husband, who walked into the place with a light step, I was shocked.
You used the money we saved for Sophia's tuition fees for this?
Daddy is the worst.
Given the irrefutable evidence of the photo, my husband muttered in a small voice.
It's normal for a man to do this kind of thing.
He then looked up at my father-in-law and sought his agreement with an upward glance.
What are you talking about? You can't afford to waste money on night outings when you have to pay for your child's education.
I'm tired from work too. What's wrong with taking a break?
My daughter sighed as if she were disgusted with her father's attitude.
Mom, do you know what kind of place that is?
Huh? No, I don't. I just took pictures and left.
I thought so. Here you go.
Sophia placed several sheets of paper with the place's homepage printed on them on the table. When my father-in-law and I peered inside, we saw that the girl working there was wearing a school uniform. Although everyone seemed to be an adult, it was a place where they provided services in cosplay.
Huh. I can't believe I showed my daughter this kind of world at her age.
I was filled with regret, but my daughter was unfazed.
So this is what Daddy likes. Gross.
She shivered as if she had a chill as she handed a piece of paper to her father.
You don't have to say it like that.
If the schools affiliated with your business partner find out that you love uniforms, it would be a huge problem. I can't imagine the company that sells teaching materials to the schools would continue to employ someone with such a fetish. My husband turned pale as I gave him a cold look. Oh, right. I immediately took out his schedule book. Since it had been left in his business bag, I was able to find it easily. I can see from this that all the schools you are attending are now known. Shall I contact these business partners about your lovely hobby?
Please don't do that. I'm sorry. I went too far. I'll change my ways from now on.
He must have realized that he couldn't get away with it. He began to tremble and sat down on the spot. He is apologizing desperately, but it's unforgivable that he has been going to the place for years, spending money recklessly, and even causing his daughter to get hurt.
Who would believe a liar like Daddy?
I'm ready to consult a lawyer and prepare for divorce. You will pay me compensation for the money you spend extravagantly so far. This is the end of our relationship.
No.
Don't do that. Gross.
My husband tried to cling to Sophia, but she immediately avoided him and eventually burst into tears. We looked at him with cold eyes as he cried in such a pathetic manner. The divorce was finalized soon after, and my husband was ordered to pay $10,000 for his reckless spending and $20,000 in compensation. Then, somehow, his frequent visits to that place were discovered by his company, and Michael was fired. He was also cut off by his father and now lives alone in a rundown house. He is surviving on day labor, but he can't afford to pay the compensation, so he ended up borrowing money from shady lenders and is now living in fear of debt collectors. On the other hand, I had more free time after the divorce. With my daughter's help, My mother's condition improved dramatically, and she no longer needed care. Now, the three of us women live together happily and peacefully.
How was this story? Please subscribe to our channel. See you in the